I knew something was wrong the moment my daughter stepped out of the spare bedroom with her dance bag still on her shoulder and her face drained of color. "Ava?" I asked, already moving toward her. She didn't answer. She held up her left hand, palm open, like the air itself had betrayed her. In her other hand was the small velvet box we kept in the safe. "Mom," she whispered, "where's my ring? Not a toy ring, the ring." Antique gold, worn smooth by generations. A small green stone that didn't sparkle like rich, but like endured. Great-great-grandma Eleanor's ring. The only heirloom Ava had ever cared about, because it wasn't just jewelry, it was a promise. My grandmother Margaret gave it to Ava on her 10th birthday, turning Ava's tiny fingers over in her own and speaking like she was placing a compass in a child's pocket. "It's yours," she said. "You wear it when you need courage." Ava didn't show it off. She wore it on hard days, tests, auditions, dance recitals. Today was rehearsal for her upcoming showcase, and she'd been nervous all morning, asking if her turns were sloppy, if her costume looked cheap, if the other girls would laugh. So she came to my parents' house early to change, opened the safe in the spare room, and reached for the velvet box. Now the box was open and empty. "I put it back," Ava said fast, words tumbling. "I didn't even take it out. I swear." I forced my voice steady. "Okay, we'll look. It has to be here." We searched like the ring could be hiding out of spite. Drawer, closet, under the bed, inside the safe again. Nothing. No glint of green, just an empty square of velvet that looked suddenly obscene. My stomach sank into a familiar place. Not fear of losing an object, fear of what my family does when no one stops them. I called my mother. She answered on the second ring with a bright, helpful voice that always sounds like a commercial. "Hi, honey. Everything okay? Where's Ava's ring?" I asked. A pause. The exact length of a lie forming. "Oh," my mother said lightly. "That. Don't make a big deal out of it." My grip tightened. Ava stood beside me, watching my face like it was a weather report. "What did you do?" I said. My mother sighed, dramatic and practiced. "We handled something. Tiffany needed help. It's temporary." Temporary. The word my family uses when they want to call theft practical. I hung up and grabbed my keys. Ava's eyes widened. "Mom?" "Shoes," I said. "Now." The drive took 12 minutes. Ava sat quiet in the passenger seat, knees bouncing. That silence kids learn when they're afraid the wrong question will make things worse. My parents' house smelled like air freshener and control. Dad was in the living room watching sports, feet up, remote in hand, calm as a man who believes consequences happen to other people. Mom folded towels at the dining table like she was holding the family together with clean linen. Tiffany, my older sister, lay on the couch with a face mask and her phone, scrolling like nothing in the world was urgent. Her son Logan barreled down the hallway in sneakers, 13 years old, recently caught breaking a neighbor's car window. Tiffany called it a kid mistake. The neighbor called it a bill. I didn't say hello. "Where's Ava's ring?" Mom paused mid-fold. "Emily, please don't do this in front of everyone." "In front of the people who took it?" I said. Dad lowered the TV volume, annoyed. "Watch your tone." Ava stepped closer to my hip, trying to stand taller. Mom clasped her hands as if she was about to explain something to a slow student. "Logan had an incident." Tiffany groaned. "It was a mistake." "What kind of mistake cost my child her heirloom?" I asked. Dad rubbed his temple. "He broke a window. We had to pay for it quickly." "And you decided the quickest way was to take Ava's ring," I said. Mom corrected me smoothly. "We didn't take it. We pawned it. It's in a shop. We'll get it back." Ava made a small, wounded sound. "Pawned?" Tiffany pulled her mask down and finally looked at Ava. "She doesn't even wear it all the time," she said, like that made it public property. "It was just sitting there." "The point," I said, staring at her, "is that it's hers." Mom's mouth tightened. "In this house, adults make decisions." Dad nodded, satisfied. "It's a ring. Margaret is old. Ava is a child. Later you can buy another ring with a similar stone. Ava's eyes filled, but she blinked hard. She'd learned that trick from watching me. I felt something inside me go cold. You think you can replace it, I said quietly. You think you can replace what it means. Mom's voice sharpened. And before you get any ideas, do not call your grandmother. She's settled at her new place. She doesn't need stress. There it was. Don't tell her. Not protect her, protect yourselves. I looked down at Ava. Her fingers were curled like she was trying to hold on to something that wasn't there anymore. We're leaving, I said. Dad scoffed. Over a ring? I turned at the doorway and met his eyes. Over respect, I said. Over the fact that you just taught my daughter she's the easiest one to take from. We walked out. Behind us, Mom called, Emily, don't be dramatic. But Ava's voice, barely audible in the car, landed hardest. Mom? She asked. Did I do something wrong? I didn't answer her right away, because the truth was worse than a lost object. Adults she was taught to trust had decided her feelings were negotiable. At home that night, Ava laid out her leotard and tights like routine could glue her together. She practiced a few turns in the living room, then stopped and stared at her empty finger. I can still dance, she said carefully. It's just different. I watched my child try to shrink the hurt so it wouldn't inconvenience anyone. That was the moment my anger changed shape. It stopped being a fire and became something steadier, a decision. My mother's warning echoed, don't tell Margaret like a dare. They weren't asking me to protect my grandmother's peace. They were asking me to protect their comfort. And I knew I wasn't going to teach Ava to swallow theft just to keep family dinners polite. Not this time. Not for my daughter. Ever. That night, Ava went to rehearsal anyway, because she's the kind of kid who believes if she keeps her promises, the world will keep its. She tightened her bun with shaking fingers and walked into the studio without her ring, without her courage. And I watched her shoulders tilt forward like someone had dimmed the lights inside her. After rehearsal, she sat in the back seat, staring at her hands. It feels weird, she said, rubbing the bare skin where the ring should have been. Like I forgot something important. You didn't forget, I told her. It was taken. She nodded, but the nod wasn't agreement. It was the kind of quiet acceptance kids learn when adults disappoint them often enough that resistance feels pointless. At home, she showered, ate 2 bites of dinner, and went to bed early. No tantrum, no raging, just careful silence, like she was trying not to cost anyone more trouble. When she was asleep, I sat at my kitchen table and stared at my phone. My mother had texted, "Don't drag Mom into this. Let it go. We'll fix it." Fix it. In my family, fix it means erase the evidence and demand gratitude for the cleanup. I thought about Margaret, my grandmother, moving into her independent living apartment 2 weeks ago. My mother described it as perfect, safer, less stress, as if Margaret had been a heavy piece of furniture they'd finally hauled out of the house. Margaret hadn't fought. She packed her books and tea tins, kissed Ava's forehead, and left with her spine straight. Before she went, she'd pulled me aside and said, "Keep your eyes open, Emily. People get creative when they think no one is watching." I'd laughed then, because it sounded like one of her dry jokes. Now it sounded like a warning. The next morning, after I dropped Ava at school, I drove straight to Margaret's community. The lobby smelled like lemon cleaner and expensive hand lotion. Everything was bright, tidy, controlled, the kind of place designed to feel reassuring. The receptionist smiled. "Margaret? She's in the lounge. She mentioned you might come by." Of course she did. Margaret sat in a high-backed chair with a newspaper open on her lap and her glasses perched low, looking like she was personally auditing the headlines. She didn't ask why I was there. She looked up once, took in my face, and patted the chair across from her. "Sit," she said. "Your mouth is doing the tight thing." I sat. My hands were sweaty. I hated that I was nervous around my own grandmother. But Margaret had a way of making the truth feel heavier just by being near it. "They took it," I said. "Ava's ring." Margaret's eyes narrowed not with shock, with confirmation. "I assumed," she said. I blinked. You assumed? She folded the newspaper with slow precision. Susan has always believed that if something is in her house, it belongs to her. She calls it practicality. It's entitlement with better branding. My throat tightened. They pawned it to pay for Logan's window. And told you not to tell me? Margaret said, like she was reciting the next line of a script. Yes, I admitted. Ava asked if she did something wrong. Margaret's face changed. Not into melodrama, into clarity sharpened by anger. A child thinks she is at fault because adults stole from her, she said quietly. That is the part I cannot tolerate. I waited for her to explode. She didn't. She leaned forward. All business. Where did Ava last see it? In the safe in the spare room, I said. She opened the box and it was gone. Any texts? She asked. Yes, and Tiffany posts everything, I said. I can screenshot dates. Do it, Margaret said. Dates matter. I stared at her. Grandma, what are you going to do? Margaret opened a drawer beside her chair and pulled out a slim folder labeled in neat handwriting. Eleanor Ring documentation. Inside were photographs from every angle, an appraisal, notes on the stone, and something that made my breath catch a tiny serial identifier etched inside the band, so fine I'd never noticed it. Then she slid out 2 pages with signatures and a notary stamp. Transfer of ownership, I whispered. Margaret nodded once. When I gave it to Ava, I didn't just gift it, I filed it. It is legally her property. Relief hit first, then grief. Relief that there was a lever to pull. Grief that Margaret knew my mother well enough to build one. You planned for this, I said. I planned for people behaving the way they usually behave when they smell value, Margaret replied. I'm sorry it was necessary. I'm not sorry it exists. She reached for her phone. Now I make a call, she said. She dialed, spoke quietly, then hung up like she'd ordered groceries. Andrew, she said, my attorney. He will contact the pawn shop and request immediate return. If they resist, we escalate. My pulse thudded. Police? Margaret's mouth curved, small and controlled. If needed, she said. But first, I give your mother a chance to do the right thing under pressure. On the drive home, my phone buzzed with a message from Mom. Don't do this. You'll regret it. I stared at the screen, then pictured Ava at school, trying to focus while feeling oddly hollow. For years I'd tried to be the easy one, the agreeable one, the one who didn't rock boats because my family used boats as weapons. But my daughter had asked me if she deserved what happened, and I was done being easy. That weekend, Tiffany dropped Logan's party invite into the family group chat like nothing had happened. Balloons, cake, fresh start. Please bring a side dish. I didn't reply. Margaret called instead, voice calm as a metronome. We're going, she said. Grandma. Emily, she cut in gently. I will not have Ava watching you swallow this. I swallowed hard. Okay. There was a pause. Then Margaret added, bring the ring box. The box? I repeated. You'll want it ready, she said. It's in motion. That evening, Ava asked, very softly, are we still going to their house this weekend? She tried to sound neutral, but her eyes kept flicking to my hands, as if the ring might appear there by magic. We'll go, I said, but we won't pretend. She nodded, then surprised me. If Grandma Margaret says it's wrong, she said, does that mean it's really wrong, even if they're mad? Yes, I told her. Especially then. You don't owe anyone silence for your feelings. Saturday came bright and cheerful in a way that felt rude. Ava wore a simple dress with leggings, hair slicked back, and around her neck she wore the thin chain she sometimes used for charms. The ring wasn't on it, just the chain and empty placeholder she kept touching without realizing. Do we have to go? She asked in the car, trying to sound casual. We're going, I said. Then I corrected myself. We're showing up. My parents' house was already packed. Cars lined the street. A giant number 13 balloon leaned against the mailbox like a warning. Through the open windows, I heard music and loud laughter, the kind that says, "Look how normal we are." Inside, relatives milled around with paper plates. Tiffany floated through the crowd like a host on a reality show, smile polished, phone camera ready. Logan wore a new hoodie and the blank expression of a kid who's been told to act grateful while adults hide the real story. My mother intercepted us by the kitchen, all teeth. "Emily, you came." Ava nodded politely. "Hi, Grandma." Mom's eyes flicked to Ava's hands, checking. Ava kept them folded. Dad appeared behind her with a drink, calm and annoyed. "Let's not make a scene," he murmured, like scenes happen by accident. Tiffany joined, laughing too sharply. "It's a birthday. Can we not?" I didn't argue. I didn't need to. The front door opened, and the sound cut through the room like a blade. Heads turned. Margaret walked in. She wasn't shrinking. She wore a crisp blouse, dark slacks, and the kind of calm that makes people lower their voices without being asked. Beside her was Andrew, tall, suited, carrying a briefcase, and Margaret's longtime friend holding a slim folder. My mother's face went pale so fast it looked wiped clean. "Mom," she breathed. Margaret smiled pleasantly. "Susan, Richard, Tiffany." Her eyes found Ava. For a split second, the edge softened. Ava straightened, like her body recognized safety, even if her brain was still braced for impact. Tiffany forced a laugh. "Grandma Margaret!" "Wow. Surprise." Margaret stepped into the living room and glanced at the banner, the cake, the cluster of adults pretending everything was fine. "Lovely," she said. "Before you cut it, I'd like a moment." People shifted. Someone pretended to focus on the chips, but Margaret's voice had always carried not loud, just certain. My mother rushed in, stage whispering, "Mom, this isn't the time." "It is the time," Margaret said, and the room went still, because when people misbehave in private, they rely on everyone else to keep it private. She placed the folder on the table beside the cake, legal paper next to frosting. "I understand Ava's ring was pawned," Margaret said calmly. A murmur rippled. An aunt's eyebrows rose. A neighbor's mouth tightened. My mother smiled weakly. "We were helping Tiffany. It was temporary." "You were stealing from a child," Margaret corrected. "That is convenience." Dad cleared his throat, trying to reclaim authority. "Margaret, we can talk later." Margaret's gaze pinned him. "You've had years of later." Then she opened the folder to a page with a notary seal and turned it toward the room. "This ring," she said, tapping the paper, "is legally owned by Ava." Tiffany's face flushed. "She's 11. "Yes," Margaret replied, unbothered. "Which makes your choice uglier." Andrew stepped forward, voice polite and firm. "The documentation includes appraisal, photographs, and an identifier etched inside the band. The transfer was notarized. Any pawn or sale without guardian consent is unlawful conversion." Half the room didn't understand the phrasing, but everyone understood the threat. My mother's hands trembled. "We didn't know." "Correct," Margaret said. "I didn't tell you. You don't behave better with information. You behave better with limits." Logan stared at the unlit candles like he wished he could disappear into the frosting. Margaret looked back at my mother. "You have 24 hours to return the ring," she said. "If it is not in Ava's possession by tomorrow evening, Andrew will file a police report and proceed." Tiffany jerked upright. "This is insane." Margaret's eyes flashed. "Did you ask Ava?" she said. "Did you ask Emily? Or did you simply take what was easiest to take?" Silence. Public and heavy. Dad's jaw worked. "You're humiliating us." Margaret nodded once. "Yes," she said. "Because shame is the only language you seem to translate." Ava's fingers tightened around mine. She wasn't crying. She was watching, the way kids watch when they're deciding who is safe. I spoke, quiet but clear. "Ava isn't second-tier family," I said. "You don't get to treat her like an extra and then demand she smile for photos." My mother's eyes sharpened. "Emily." "No," I said. "Not today." Margaret crouched slightly to Ava's level. "Sweetheart," she said, voice warm in a room gone cold. You did nothing wrong. You were robbed. And you deserved adults who say that out loud. Ava's lip trembled. Do I get it back? She whispered. Margaret nodded. Yes, I promise. The party didn't recover. Conversations restarted in awkward whispers. People found sudden reasons to leave. Neighbors avoided Tiffany's eyes. Dad sat down hard, like his body finally admitted the weight. That night my phone rang. My mother's voice shook. Emily, she said. We're getting it, okay? We're getting it. I looked at Ava asleep on the couch, still in her party dress, exhaustion finally winning over fear. Good, I said. Because tomorrow isn't just a deadline, it's a lesson. After I hung up, Ava stirred and opened her eyes, confused by the late-night call. Was that Grandma Susan? She asked. Yes, I said, smoothing her hair. They're going to bring it back. Ava sat up slowly. Because Grandma Margaret said they had to? Because Grandma Margaret reminded them they can't take from you and call it help, I said. Ava chewed her lip. Everyone looked weird, she said, thinking back to the party. Like they wanted to pretend they didn't hear. That's how families keep bad behavior alive, I told her. They act like silence is kindness. Ava looked down at her chain. Grandma Margaret wasn't trying to be mean, she said, almost asking. No, I said. She was being clear. Clear feels mean to people who benefit from confusion. Ava let out a long breath. I thought, if grown-ups take something, maybe it means they're right. I swallowed. Grown-ups can be wrong, I said. Sometimes loudly wrong. She nodded, and for the first time in days, her shoulders dropped a little. Okay, she whispered. Then I'm allowed to be mad. Yes, I said. You're allowed. At them. The ring came back the next afternoon, not in a pretty gift bag, not with an apology, but in a plain brown envelope that made it feel like evidence. My mother showed up at my apartment door with my father behind her, both of them stiff with the resentment people wear when they're forced to do the right thing. Tiffany didn't come. Logan didn't come. Accountability is a sport my sister refuses to play. Mom held out the envelope like it burned. Here, she said. It's back. I didn't invite them in. I took the envelope and kept the door half closed. We had to pay fees, she said quickly, like I should feel sorry for her. And the shop owner was difficult. He was protecting stolen property from being moved, I said. That's his job. Dad's face hardened. Margaret didn't have to bring lawyers into it. She didn't bring lawyers into it, I said. You did. The second you pawned a child's property. Mom flinched. Emily, don't say stolen. Why? I asked. Because it makes you sound like what you did? Ava padded down the hallway barefoot, rubbing sleep from her eyes. She'd heard the voices. She always heard tension before anyone admitted it. Mom's expression softened into performance. Hi, sweetheart. Ava didn't smile. She looked at the envelope, then at my mother, like she was checking which one was safer. Is it there? She asked. I knelt and opened the envelope carefully. Inside was the velvet box, and inside that gold and green, the ring. Still scratched in the same places, still quietly shining like it had been waiting. Ava's breath caught. She slid it onto her finger with reverence, then pressed her thumb over the stone as if confirming it was real. Mom reached out as if to touch Ava's hair. Ava leaned back just slightly. Not rude, just guarded. That tiny movement told me everything. Ava had learned something, and it wasn't, family always protects you. It was, protection has to be chosen. My mother's voice went tight. Are you happy now? Ava is, I said. That's the point. Dad tried to regain control. This has gotten out of hand. It got out of hand when you took it, I said. Go home. They left without apologizing. They left like people who believe returning what they stole should earn them a medal. After the door closed, Ava turned the ring in the light. I thought, she said softly, maybe I didn't deserve it yet. My throat tightened. You deserved it the second it was given to you, I told her. And you deserve adults who act like it. The following week, Margaret invited me and Ava to her apartment. Andrew was there again, and a second folder sat on the table, thicker than the last. Margaret poured tea, like this was just another Tuesday. Susan is angry, she said, stirring sugar. Richard is offended. Tiffany is telling anyone who will listen that I ruined Logan's birthday. Ava looked up from her cup. Did I ruin it? Margaret's gaze snapped to her. No, she said. The adults who stole from you did. Do not carry their mess in your bones. Ava nodded slowly, like she was learning a rule she should have been taught years ago. Margaret slid the folder toward me. I updated my estate plan, she said. Inside were documents that made my stomach flip. Changes to power of attorney, changes to access, and most importantly, my mother's access being reduced to almost nothing. I'm naming you, Margaret said simply, for anything involving Ava, medical, financial, legal. Susan will not represent her, and there will be no more weekends at the grandparents, unless Ava wants them. A familiar reflex of guilt rose in me, the one my family trained. Protecting yourself equals attacking them. Margaret read my face. Emily, she said gently, your mother will call this punishment. Let her. Boundaries feel like punishment to people who benefit from your lack of them. Ava looked between us. So I don't have to go there? She asked. Only if you want, I said. Her shoulders released a fraction, like she'd been holding her breath since the ring vanished. My mother called later and didn't ask how Ava was. She asked, Are you proud of yourself? I didn't take the bait. Ava is safe, I said. That's all I care about. Ava started wearing the ring on the chain at her throat. Partly for safety, partly because she wanted it near her heartbeat, something she could touch without asking permission. And slowly, something else shifted. At rehearsal, when a girl pushed in front of her at the mirror, Ava said, I was standing there, and held her spot. At school, when someone made a joke that wasn't funny, she said, I don't like that, and didn't laugh along to make it easier. The first time she corrected my mother calmly, politely, my mother's smile tightened like she'd tasted something bitter. Good, I thought. Let it. Because Ava wasn't learning to be difficult. She was learning to be real. 2 weeks later, Margaret called me, amused. They're still complaining, she said. Susan says I turned everyone against her. Did you? I asked. Margaret chuckled. No, she said. I simply stopped covering for her. Then her voice softened. How is Ava sleeping? Better, I said. She still checks her jewelry box before bed. That will fade, Margaret said. But the lesson should stay. What lesson? I asked. Margaret's answer came without hesitation. That she matters, she said, even when it's inconvenient for other people. A few days after that, Logan texted Ava. It was one sentence, misspelled and awkward. Sry about the ring. I didn't know they did that. Ava showed me the message and waited, like she needed permission to feel something. I don't think he planned it, she said. I don't either, I admitted. But he benefited from it. Ava typed back slowly. I'm glad you said sorry. Please don't let them take my things again. When she hit send, she looked up at me with wide eyes. Was that rude? No, I said. That was a boundary. Tiffany, meanwhile, began rewriting history in real time. 1 week, she told relatives, we all agreed. The next week, she insisted, I told Susan it was a bad idea. When consequences show up, my sister has a gift for finding distance. Ava listened to the gossip once, then shrugged. If people keep changing the story, she said, it means they know the truth is bad. She was right, and that, oddly, made me hopeful. Spring arrived like it always does, slow at first, then suddenly everywhere. Ava's showcase got closer, and with it, the familiar nerves. But now when she reached for courage, she didn't reach into an empty space. On the morning of her final rehearsal, she stood in front of the mirror, clipped her hair back, and touched the ring at her throat. Okay, she whispered to herself. I can do this. I pretended not to hear, because kids deserve privacy with their bravery. Margaret came to the rehearsal with me, sitting in the back row of the studio's small audience area, hands folded over her cane. She didn't clap loudly. She didn't gush. She watched the way she always watched, alert, proud, and ready to defend if the world tried anything stupid. Afterward, Ava ran to her, cheeks flushed, eyes bright. "Did I rush the ending?" she asked. Margaret smiled. "Your timing was honest," she said. "Honest is better than perfect." Ava beamed like someone had handed her a crown. My mother didn't come. Tiffany didn't come. Dad didn't come. They'd heard about the rehearsal through relatives and decided absence was their best protest. In my family, when you can't control a situation, you punish it with silence and call that dignity. I didn't chase them. I didn't beg them to show up. I was done auditioning for their approval. The showcase night was warm and crowded. Parents held phones up like lighters at a concert. Teachers whispered last-minute reminders. Ava's team lined up backstage in glittery costumes and nervous smiles. Ava found me before she went on. "Mom," she said, and she looked smaller again for a second, because even brave kids are still kids. "What if I mess up?" I knelt to her level. "Then you'll keep going," I said. "Because messing up isn't the end. Quitting on yourself is." She nodded, pressed the ring once through her costume, and ran to her spot. When the music started, Ava moved like she belonged to it. Not perfect real, strong. Her turns landed clean. Her arms stayed soft. And when another girl stumbled slightly near the end, Ava adjusted without panic, guiding the spacing like she'd been doing it for years. I felt tears prick, not because of dance, but because I could see the difference in her, the way she didn't shrink to make room for someone else's mistake, the way she held her place and still helped. After the show, she flew into my arms, sweating and laughing. "I did it," she breathed. "You did," I said, and I meant more than dance. Margaret hugged her next, tight and careful. Ava held on longer than she used to, like she finally trusted that grown-up arms could mean safety. In the lobby, a relative approached my Aunt Diane, the family's unofficial news channel. She leaned in and whispered, "Your mom is furious, you know. She says Margaret is poisoning Ava against the family." I smiled politely. "If telling the truth is poison," I said, "maybe they shouldn't drink lies." Diane blinked, then laughed nervously and walked away. A week later, my parents tried the talk again. Dad called and said he wanted to meet as adults, which in his language means he wanted me alone so he could use guilt without witnesses. I agreed to a phone call instead. "We didn't mean harm," he started. "You meant convenience," I said. He exhaled hard. "It was a ring. It was Ava," I corrected. Silence. Then, "Margaret is overreacting." "Margaret is reacting appropriately," I said. "You're just not used to consequences." He tried my name like it was a leash. "Emily." "I'm not doing this," I said. "If you want to be in Ava's life, you can start by apologizing to her. Not to me. To her. And you can stop pretending you had a right." He didn't apologize. Not that day. My mother's approach was different. She sent Ava a card with glitter stickers and a message that said, "We love you so much," and nothing about the ring. No accountability, just sentiment, like confetti thrown over a stain. Ava read it, then set it on the counter. "It feels weird," she said. "What feels weird?" I asked. "Like she's trying to skip the part where she says sorry," Ava said. My chest warmed painfully. "Yes," I said. "That's exactly what she's doing." Ava nodded once, satisfied she'd named it correctly. Then she went to practice her stretches for next season. Margaret continued moving pieces quietly. She didn't brag about it. She just did it. She set up a small trust for Ava's heirlooms and future education. She limited who could access what. She documented everything like a woman who'd learned that love without paperwork becomes a loophole. One evening, Margaret came to my apartment with a small wooden box. Inside was a copy of the ring's appraisal and transfer papers, neatly sealed. "For your safe," she said. I swallowed. Thank you. Margaret studied me. You did the hard part, she said. You chose Ava over comfort. I thought about my mother's bright fake voice, my father's calm entitlement, Tiffany's shrug, Logan's broken window. I chose my child, I said. Margaret nodded. Good, she said, because one day Ava will be grown, and she will remember who taught her that she could take up space. Later that night, Ava sat on my bed and traced the ring with her finger. Mom, she asked, can I believe I deserve things? I pulled her close. You deserve them from the beginning, I said. Some people just wanted you to forget. Ava leaned her forehead against my shoulder, and for a moment the apartment felt bigger, like the air had room for both of us. A month later, Ava asked to visit my parents on her terms. We met at a cafe, neutral territory. She wore the ring on her chain and spoke politely, but she didn't minimize herself. When we left, she squeezed my hand and said, I like choosing, so here's what I'm curious about. Did Margaret go too far by turning a family party into a public reckoning and threatening legal action over a piece of jewelry? Or did she finally do what needed to be done to protect a child from being treated like the easiest sacrifice? Tell me what you think in the comments. Too far, not far enough, or exactly right. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe for the next one, because I promise, this family isn't the only one that learns what happens when grandma keeps receipts.